Picture this. A drone glides over a glass and steel monster of a train station in Chongqing. Multiple levels of high-speed rail, metro lines, and shopping centers all stacked into one glowing machine, moving hundreds of thousands of people a day. Then the shot cuts to a bridge so long it disappears into the haze, built from nothing to completion in just 4 years. And as you watch, a question starts to form in your mind. Are we looking at the future, or at something we do not quite understand yet? Now imagine scrolling on your phone. One clip shows that Chinese megabridge finished in roughly 48 months for around $300 million. The next shows Baltimore, where more than a year after the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse, crews are only now driving the first replacement pylon into the water. Same species, same engineering textbooks, totally different timelines. And here is the part that keeps breaking comment sections in the West. If they can do this, what exactly are we doing wrong? For a lot of Western viewers, those videos feel like science fiction trailers. But for people who actually go to China, the shock is even deeper. Podcast hosts like Wes and Dylan describe landing there as flipping a mental switch. The cities feel more modern, safer, and more futuristic than anything they expected. They say they have never met a foreigner who visited and did not come back saying just one word: wow. In a minute, we will dig into the economic engine behind this, but first, you need to understand what it feels like on the ground. Step off a 350-kilometer-per-hour high-speed train into that Chongqing megastation, and your brain quietly short-circuits. There is no chaos, no crumbling platforms, no paper tickets. You follow clear digital signs, scan a code, grab a snack with your phone, and make your transfer in under 5 minutes. It feels less like public transit and more like walking onto a big budget sci-fi set that someone forgot to turn back into fiction. But here's the part nobody talks about. The real shock is in all the little frictions that never happen. You do not hunt for cash. You do not guess which platform. You tap Alipay or WeChat Pay for everything, from street food to hospital bills, and it just works. High-speed rail lines stretch more than 40,000 kilometers across the country, turning what used to be overnight trips into a few hours in a comfortable seat. And all of this is wrapped in heavy security, cameras, and policing that make public spaces feel strangely calm to many visitors. The gap between this reality and the old images of bicycles, smog, and factories is so big, it feels like stepping through a wormhole. So why does the West still picture 1990s China while 2025 China looks like this? Part of it is media. Western coverage leans on censorship, geopolitics, and pollution, and only shows infrastructure when there is a record broken or a crisis. That means most people never see the everyday reality of spotless subway stations and cashless micropayments. But the deeper reason is more uncomfortable. The future shock you feel watching those clips is not just aesthetic. It is economic. It tells you something about how power is being built and where it might be shifting. Those megaprojects are not just pretty backdrops. They are the visible tip of a massive economic strategy. In early 2025, infrastructure investment in China jumped more than 11% year on year, far faster than overall growth. When the economy wobbles, Beijing does not just tweak interest rates. It greenlights rail lines, ports, data centers, and industrial parks at a pace market democracies can barely imagine. In other words, every viral bridge you see is also a policy decision about what kind of superpower China wants to be in 20 years. Here is how the engine room works. Central planners set 5-year targets, pick priority sectors, and hand out quotas to regions. State-owned banks and provincial governments line up behind those goals, pushing cheap credit into approved projects. Environmental reviews and land acquisitions still happen, but on a fast track with far fewer veto points than in Baltimore or Berlin. That is how a world's largest bridge can go from blueprint to ribbon cutting in under 4 years, while a single Western rebuild can barely escape the planning phase. Crucially, this is not just about building Instagram-ready skylines. Infrastructure is wired directly into China's industrial strategy. High-speed rail shortens supply chains. Deep-water ports feed container exports. Massive grid upgrades power data centers and electric vehicle factories. Official documents talk about building new productive forces, meaning advanced manufacturing, green tech, and AI-heavy services. So when you watch a drone shot of a new bridge on your feed, you are also looking at a bet on who will dominate the next wave of global industries. And the real flex is not the concrete. It is what is happening inside the factories behind it. Manufacturing investment is still climbing, not to build more cheap assembly lines, but to upgrade into electric vehicles, batteries, chips, and precision robotics. Walk through a coastal city, and the futuristic vibe is not just the skyline. It is fleets of domestic EVs, delivery robots weaving through pedestrians, and QR codes on almost every surface. In a moment, we will compare this with Western systems, but first, look at how tightly China is fusing the physical and the digital. Inside so-called smart factories, robotic arms line the assembly floors. Machine vision systems inspect parts in milliseconds. Warehouse bots choreograph packages like a ballet. High-speed rail and megabridges move components and people, while fifth-generation networks and cloud platforms move data. Citywide sensor grids feed AI systems that tune traffic, energy use, even policing. It is one integrated stack: concrete as hardware, data as software, and the whole city as an operating system. That is a very different model from a single subway line tacked onto a century-old network. Now, contrast that with how big projects move in the United States or Europe. There, infrastructure is slow on purpose. Projects crawl through environmental reviews, public hearings, historic preservation checks, and overlapping approvals. Each step exists to prevent real harm, but together they turn progress into molasses. Add in fragmented funding, election cycles, and local not-in-my-backyard lawsuits, and a single rail line or bridge can get stuck for a decade. This is not just a paperwork problem. It is a strategic one. It decides who gets to build the platforms of the green and digital economy first. China's one-party system trades process for speed. Weak judicial checks on state projects and strong land control mean fast land acquisition, forced relocations, and synchronized construction. That is how you get more than 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail in about 15 years, while a single Californian line struggles to lay a few hundred. But here is the twist. Those trade-offs cut both ways. Rapid build-outs can overshoot demand, create ghost airports, or bulldoze communities with little recourse. Western slowness wastes time and money, but it also protects rights people fought for over a century. So is Western slowness a bug or a feature? That is not an academic question. The speed gap will shape who leads in green tech, AI data centers, ports, and logistics over the next 20 years. If democracies cannot find ways to keep environmental and labor protections while collapsing timelines, the future will keep premiering somewhere else first. This is not just about national pride. It is about where the best jobs, the most advanced factories, and the most resilient supply chains end up. But even inside China's chrome and glass skyline, the numbers are flashing warning lights. World Bank projections show real growth slowing from around 5% in 2024 to 4.5%, then 4% by 2026. Nominal growth has dipped near 3.7%, hinting at weak pricing power and thin margins. Exports are still growing faster than the overall economy, but domestic consumption has not bounced back to its pre-pandemic momentum. Under the polished subway platforms, the demand story is less impressive than the concrete story. The biggest crack runs through property. For decades, apartments were the default savings vehicle. Now the real estate sector is shrinking instead of driving growth. Developers are stuck with unfinished projects and heavy debts. Homebuyers hesitate, waiting for prices to fall. Because housing and construction once made up roughly a quarter of the economy, that slowdown hits everything from steel mills to furniture factories. Beijing has shifted from fiscal restraint to stimulus, adding support worth around 1.5% of GDP in 2025, but much of that still flows into infrastructure and high tech, not into household wallets. That is the two-speed paradox. To visitors, China looks unstoppable: spotless stations, cashless everything, megaprojects finishing faster than a single Western bridge rebuild. Underneath, growth is slowing. Consumers are cautious, and the state leans harder on exports and big projects to keep the machine humming. Infrastructure investment jumping 11% a year makes for great drone footage. It does less to fix weak wage growth and nervous households. The spectacle is real. So are the structural questions. So what does all of this mean for you? It means those viral clips are not just internet eye candy. They are signals about how different systems make trade-offs between speed, rights, and long-term bets. China is using infrastructure and industrial upgrading to hardwire its role in future industries, even as it wrestles with property busts and slower growth. Democracies are protecting process but risking irrelevance if they cannot execute faster. The stakes are simple: where the future is built and who has to import it later. The next time you see a sweeping shot of a Chinese bridge or a sci fi station on your feed, try looking past the wow factor. Ask what kind of financing, politics, and trade offs made it possible. Ask whether your own country could build something similar in under 5 years, and if not, why not? Because this is not just China's story. It is a mirror held up to every system on the planet, forcing a hard question. Are we still capable of building at the scale the 21st century demands? If you want to go deeper into how these mega projects affect jobs, supply chains, and the race for green tech and AI, tell me in the comments. Do you think Western slowness is a bug we need to fix or a feature we should protect? And what shocked you most about China's reality versus its reputation? Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next breakdown, and share this video with someone who still thinks of China as a land of bicycles and smokestacks.